Taoiseach, I'm also voting yes and calling for a yes vote on Friday. But I wanted to raise another health matter of public importance, which is this morning. You set up the National Rare Diseases Office, I think, when you were Minister for Health in 2015. And by definition, of course, rare diseases are rare, but the office itself estimates that something like 300,000 Irish people will develop a rare disease at some stage in their lives. But recurring complaints to ourselves are the lack of clinical supports and the tortuously slow process in the approval of orphan drugs for these diseases. A case in point, Taoiseach, is the failure since 2009 for nearly 10 years to approve the drug Kuvan or Supropterin under the process for national pricing and reimbursement. Kuvan, of course, was developed to assist citizens with the rare metabolic condition phenylketonuria, PKU, where patients have difficulty processing the amino acid phenylalanine and must live on very restricted low-protein diets. And Kuvan, of course, helps many of those affected live more normal lives. And PKU, of course, was first identified in the 1930s, although the widespread heel prick screening didn't start actually in the 1960s. And failure, of course, to give treatment to a child after the first 48 hours results in serious cognitive impairment and often tragic and severe brain damage. Now, in 2009, the European Medicines Agencies and 20 countries approved the use of Kuvan, and Minister Harris told me, I think, that at that time there had been insufficient evidence submitted by Merck Serono, the manufacturers, and they passed on the market authorisation to BioMarin in 2016, and they submitted a new health technology assessment for Kuvan then, or Supropterin, to the HSE. And 9 months ago I asked Minister Harris for the results of the assessment by the National Centre for Pharmacoeconomics, and we were very disappointed, my constituents and myself, to find that Kuvan was not recommended for reimbursement last September 15th. It was said to be not cost effective, although even 100% uptake has been estimated to cost only around 2.5 million a year. Per capita cost, I think, Taoiseach, that you may know from the past, your past work, is relatively small. But in several dollar replies, Minister Harris has told me that the assessment process is ongoing, that the Rare Diseases Medical Products Technology Review Committee is engaged with prescribers and specialist centres and the patient representative group to try to bring forward clear reimbursement guidelines, which would be expected to target Supropterin to the patients' cohorts to whom it may be a cost-effective intervention. So I appreciate, Taoiseach, Minister Harris's diligent responses on Kuvan over the past 2 years, but after nearly 10 years of assessment as one of the most affected countries by this condition, isn't it surely now time to approve it? And as you may be aware, Taoiseach, 1 in 4,500 babies is born with PKU in Ireland. It's double the European average. I think only Italy and Turkey are somewhere near us. It's said to be from one of our Celtic genes. And in 2015, I think you told me that there were something like 350 or so referrals and 20 new PKU patients a year at Temple Street in the metabolic disorders unit. It's estimated there are currently, I think, around 750 patients in all with PKU receiving hospital treatment. And representatives from the PKU Association of Ireland and the European Association and other patients and relatives have been in regular contact. So there's a very strong request, Taoiseach, that this drug would be approved. Thanks, Cian.
We have a rare disease strategy that the Deputy will be aware of. I think it was published by Minister James Riley a few years ago, and one of the recommendations in that was to establish the National Rare Diseases Office, which I had the pleasure to open during my time as Minister for Health. Rare diseases, if you take them on their own, are rare, but when you actually add them up together, quite a lot of people do have a rare disease. It includes diseases like PKU, which the Deputy mentioned, includes haemophilia, includes cystic fibrosis and other diseases as well. When you add up all of the people who have a rare disease, it actually comes up to a couple of 100,000 people, and it doesn't seem so rare when you do that. In terms of any new medicine, including Kuvan, a couple of things have to be assessed. First of all, its effectiveness. Does it actually do what the manufacturers say it does in terms of modifying disease and improving quality of life and life expectancy? Secondly, is the price that they're putting forward fair? Because even the richest countries are budget limited, and if you pay too much for something, there's the opportunity cost, the other things that you cannot do as a result. And also, are there alternative treatments available that might be as effective or more cost effective? I think in this case there isn't. I believe it's an orphan drug. The assessment is done by the National Centre for Pharmacoexcellence, that is in St James's. They do a detailed assessment of the medicine. and they make a recommendation to the HSE's National Drugs Committee, who make the final decision. It's not a decision that's made by politicians, and shouldn't be, I think, for lots of reasons that we'll all understand. But it's always the case that if the manufacturer has new information, has new data, they can submit that and it will be examined again. And I understand when it comes to Kuvan that is currently being done, that the application is currently being reassessed. I know the Minister has met with the parents of children who have the disease, and he will, of course, provide an update to the Deputy as soon as possible.
Deputy Broughan.
Thanks, Ken Corder. Well, Kuvan, Minister, or Taoiseach, is actually a synthetic copy, I think, of the BH4 deficiency, which causes PKU. But there are a lot of heart-rending accounts of the daily struggles of families with children with PKU to stay within their low-protein allowance, and especially given that there are few low-protein foods available in Ireland. But as I said, the European Medicines Agency, it's 10 years now since it approved it for market authorisation. We've had, most of our European Union colleague countries have their health systems have supported it. The Orphanet Journal of Rare Diseases, which you'll be aware of, they published last year the complete European guidelines on phenylketonuria diagnosis and treatment, and it says dietary plus medicine is the best control of the treatment. And on the wider issue, Taoiseach, of orphan drugs, of course including Kuvan, does the government then foresee making any changes to the quality of adjusted life measurements in the National Centre for Pharmacoeconomics, the NCPE assessments? I've asked that question several times to Minister Harris, because that seems to be the key point in terms of, when you start talking about cost effectiveness, and our officials in your department, in the Department of Health and the HSE, working therefore in a fairer way to assess the efficiency of treatments for rare diseases. You mentioned about the National Rare Disease Plan, of course, 2014-2018. So are we actually preparing, Taoiseach, a new plan from 2019? And I know when you set up the Rare Diseases Office, I think it started with 5 part-time staff.
Thank you, Deputy.
I know you didn't provide any additional funding in 2017. So is further funding and resources being provided for that? But above all, Taoiseach, I think it's now time, as Minister Harris probably agree, to make sure Kuvan is approved.
Taoiseach.
Yeah, Minister Harris has met the patients affected and their families, and he has committed to giving you an update on where we are in terms of approval for Kuvan specifically, and to give you an update as well on funding for the Rare Diseases Office. As a broader issue, the Government does acknowledge that there is a problem here, or we have a problem here in the sense that the process by which we approve drugs generally may be inappropriate for orphan drugs, because there is the only one available. That's the nature of an orphan drug. It is, however, also something that the pharmaceutical industry takes advantage of, where there are a number of medicines for a particular condition. You can't overcharge for them. When you're the only one who produces the only medicine, you can almost charge whatever you like, and that is an enormous problem that we're facing, and I think other countries around the world are facing as well. I think the process that we have for assessing new medicines is a robust one. It is a good one. It's scientific and it's independent. But it does concern me when I see medicines being available in Britain, for example, that are not available here. The NHS is not renowned for approving new medicines quickly. They haven't, for example, approved Orkambi for patients with CF. But it does concern me when I see medicines available in Britain that we don't make available here, and I find that very hard to justify. And Minister Harris and I are in conversations with the Minister of Finance as well as to how we might improve that situation in the near future.